Welcome to Top 10 Scary Stories. Remember to like and subscribe for more videos. Starting off with number 1. Woods. A few years ago I was walking through the woods off the beaten track a bit and I smelt this really overpowering sweet smell. Being nosy, I pulled back the undergrowth to have a look and found a dead body. The guy had clearly been there a while and wasn't looking great, all swollen and green and black with various runny bits. The local wildlife had also been dining well for a few days. I called the police, who told me to wait with the body until they arrived. Being in the middle of nowhere, it took a while for them to arrive and it got dark and I was just sat there in the dark with him for a long time. It turned out he had committed suicide. For a long time afterwards I had dreams about him and he would talk to me and not nice things. Mainly about how he was angry I had disturbed his resting place and he wanted me to kill myself. Probably just my imagination, but all pretty disturbing at the time. He still turns up in my dreams from time to time and no doubt will be tonight after typing this. Number 2. Family cabin. After my great-grandma died, my family and I went to our family cabin in the country. We only went there in the summer and the toilet was broken due to the cold winter. Anyway, we all peed outside the house and went to bed. The bedrooms are upstairs and the house is very old, keep this in mind. There is one bedroom inside the other bedroom, which was where my dad and stepmom slept. The rooms are only divided by a curtain and you have to walk through me and my sister's room to get there. So we go to sleep, and our dad has to leave in the morning because he has to buy a new toilet, and when he got downstairs the front door was wide open. Both my dad and stepmom made sure the door was locked and no one was up at night to pee outside because me or my sister would never walk outside alone to pee. I barely managed to go alone at night to pee inside the house. BC, it's an old house and it's scary, and 2, if my dad or stepmom did, we would wake up from them walking through our room. So why might this be paranormal, you may ask? I mentioned that this was after my great-grandma died, and well, when she was alive and used to go to said house she would always have the door wide open in the summer. Also when she died, an old alarm clock deep inside a closet in her home suddenly rang at her time of death. Number 3. Just before dawn. Early one morning, just before dawn in September 2107, when the house was still filled with darkness, I was awoken from a deep sleep. I saw the distinct image of my mother, entering my bedroom and standing at the foot of my bed. She stood there, mouthing words I was unable to hear, but it appeared she was saying, "Goodbye." She gave me a slow wave of her hand and just slowly disappeared into thin air as I reached out to her. I was fully awake and awoke my husband to tell him what just happened. He said it was probably a lucid dream, and besides, my mom was alive at my childhood home, nearly 2,000 miles across the country. I received a phone call a couple of hours later, informing me of her death. Accounting for the time zone difference, she died just minutes before I saw her image at the foot of my bed. I've always felt honored that she chose me to say goodbye to. Number 4. Friend's basement. I rented a friend's basement while I was working in another state for about a year. The basement was half finished, the walls were just the studs, cement floor, you get the idea. There was a lot of stuff in the basement, not quite hoarder level but more pack rat I would say, very cluttered with stuff piling up. It was a northern state, and when I first moved in it was summer and I didn't have any issues at all. I kept to myself mostly, did my thing, and there were no problems. The house and specifically the basement always had an odd feeling though. As summer turned into fall, then fall into winter, it got quite cold downstairs, so much so that I basically lived in a hoodie and sweatpants. Even when I went to bed for the night I kept my hoodie on because it was pretty cold. I began noticing some things happening around that time too. a constant feeling of being watched. I would see someone walking in the next room between the wall studs out of the corner of my eye. Mood swings, just some weird stuff. To be honest, I look back at myself during that time and I was acting completely different and very much not the same person I normally am. Most concerning and scary was the recurring dream I was having about a ghost. I was always in an unknown house and this deformed, disfigured, female ghost would always jump out from behind a doorway or wall and scare the shit out of me. As per usual in dreams, you can't ever move either, so when I would try to run from the ghost, I couldn't move and she would always just be on the verge of grabbing me before I would jolt awake. The dream became so regular and familiar that as soon as I saw myself in the same, unknown house, I would tell myself, okay, she's going to jump out and scare you. But that never helped and it always turned out the same. This continued for about 2 months or so, until I couldn't take it anymore and told my friend that I was pretty sure their basement was haunted. They proceeded to tell me that I was not the first person to mention that, and there were belongings in the basement of a loved one that had killed themselves. Needless to say, I worked hard to get out of that house and a couple months later did just that. I have never had the dream again and my mood swings stopped, and I began acting normal again. Number 5. Haunted Kitchen. Back around 2014 I was a nanny to a little boy around 4 years old. His sister would come home from school in the evening and I'd have them both until around 4 or 5 p.m. There were strange experiences in the house involving the kids, but the two that I personally experienced involved the girl who was 10. Now I am 5 feet 6, and she was the same height as me with feet roughly the same size as mine, 9. One afternoon I was preparing the boys' lunch and I dropped a piece of food on the floor in front of the counter. Now the front of the counter met with a short bit of wall that opened to the bathroom doorway to the right. When I bent to pick up the piece of food, there were a pair of purplish-gray little girls' shoes sticking out of that piece of wall, as if a girl around 6 to 7 years of age was standing directly inside of the wall with the toes of her shoes poking out. I about fainted from fear. Another day when both kids were home, oldest was probably on school break. I don't remember, the boy was sitting on the couch and the girl had her backside perched on the edge of the kitchen table in the dining room. The living and dining rooms were one open space and they were engrossed in a cartoon. I stepped into the bathroom to wash my hands after blowing my nose, leaving the bathroom door ajar. I happened to glance up into the mirror and saw the girl walk to the counter in the kitchen behind me. I turned around to ask her what she was doing and she wasn't there. I walked into the living room and she was still at the table watching TV. I asked her what she'd been doing in the kitchen because she'd clearly been by the sink, and she said she hadn't been in there. When their mom and I had a chance to talk the next morning, I told her about seeing her daughter in the kitchen and what had happened. Her eyes got huge and she proceeded to tell me about the time they'd had a house full of family visiting and all the kids were outside playing while the adults were inside talking. She very clearly saw her daughter come inside and walk to the kitchen counter. She called over to ask her daughter what she needed. Her mother-in-law was sitting in a different spot with a clearer view of the counter and asked her who she was talking to, and the mom said her daughter had just walked in. The mother-in-law said, "Babe, nobody's in there." "Yes, she is. I just watched her go over to the sink." "Babe, go look. She's not in there." Quote, sure enough, the kitchen was empty and the kids were still running around outside. Number 6. Potential kidnapping. This is going to be long so I apologize in advance. But it was creepy as hell. I was at the local grocery store I visit weekly to shop for food. I normally spend $100 to $200 a week on food for myself and my family, so I always leave with a full cart. I'm standing in the checkout line minding my business when a tall man, I'd guess early 40s, approached me and complimented my hair. "Your hair is gorgeous." Loud enough for everyone within a 20-foot radius to hear. Now, I appreciate a compliment as much as the next girl, but it was a little obnoxious to say the least. I thanked him politely and redirected my attention to my cart, where I awkwardly started organizing the items, in hopes that the 15 pairs of eyes now staring in my direction would look elsewhere. Unfortunately, Loudmouth didn't take the hint. He started asking rapid-fire questions, statements, barely pausing for me to get a word end edgewise before the next sentence would spill out of his mouth. This is when it gets really awkward, as if it wasn't weird enough. He asks if I want to go out with him sometime, maybe tonight after I put my groceries away. He could come to my house and help me put groceries away, and then we could leave from there. I told him I didn't think my husband would appreciate that, and he got angry. I was freaked out at this point and everyone was still staring. After I rejected his offer, his mood changed so fast it was like a light switch got flipped and the compliments turned into nasty insults and curses. Mind you, this guy didn't have a cart or anything in his hand to buy. He was kind of standing off to the side, kind of leaning on one of the drink refrigerator displays. Thankfully, a gentleman who was in an aisle within my sight, who presumably heard the whole thing, came up behind us and asked him if he was in line. Loudmouth said no. Gentleman promptly told him he was being inappropriate, loud, and needed to buzz off. To my surprise, Loudmouth stepped aside and with one final insult and stomped out of the store. I thanked gentleman and we continued waiting in line, me with an entire week of groceries and him with a bottle of Gatorade. I offered to let him go in front of me and he declined, saying that he wasn't in a rush. It was really like one of those scenes in a movie where the nice tough guy saves the girl from the jackass. And #X200B. Even so, I was afraid Loudmouth would be waiting outside, so I asked the cashier to call one of her co-workers to walk me to my car. Gentleman insisted that he would be happy to escort me to my car and I accepted. But as I stood there watching the cashier ring my items, I was overcome by this sick feeling, like I was going to vomit everywhere. I decided it was just my nerves, as I have issues with anxiety and this reaction is pretty normal. It typically passes within a few minutes once I mentally talk myself down. But for fear of further embarrassment, this time in the form of projectile vomiting in the middle of a grocery store, I hurriedly paid and took a seat on a bench close by. I told gentleman never mind and that I was a little freaked out, so I was going to call my husband to come pick me up instead. We'd get the car later, I didn't care, I just wanted to make it home in one piece. He told me to have a nice day and walked out the door. Hand to God, as soon as he walked out of the building I felt normal again. So still blaming my anxiety, I felt sort of silly, but I'd already called my husband, so I stood up and pushed my cart over to the window to watch for my ride, just in time to see a junky white SUV drive by with freaking, wait for it, gentleman in the passenger seat and Loudmouth in the driver's seat. I about shit myself. Number 7. The man whom I was going to marry. I'll make it brief. About a month ago, a man came to my boyfriend's work and asked to speak to him. He asked if my boyfriend was _________, and my boyfriend confirmed and asked who he was, what he could do for him. He said, I just wanted to meet the guy who is with the girl I proposed to. My boyfriend, assuming this is a misunderstanding, asks, and who's that? Guy gives my full name. My boyfriend asks his name so he can tell me. He said hello and the guy gives him a death glare and walks away. I am 10,000% sure that I do not know who this person is, or at the very least 100% sure it isn't someone I dated. Only one person has ever proposed to me and my boyfriend has met the person prior. I went through every person that remotely matched the description, even if it didn't make sense, and my boyfriend said none of them were him. Today I confirmed for sure that my dance bag is missing from my car. I only leave my car unlocked at home. If someone was to steal something from my car, there are a lot of tools and things that would be worth stealing. A lot more than my bag of sweaty old shoes and tights, leotards. Maybe I somehow forgot to lock my car someplace and someone stole it because the bag itself is cute, but I really can't imagine I would leave it unlocked like that. Paranoia. Number 8. The man in the black car. My roommate and I used to live in Virginia, about 20 minutes from her mom's apartment, and we used to dog sit for her all the time. One night after we dropped the dogs off, we stopped at the Wells Fargo near our apartment so my roommate could deposit the money her mom had given her for watching the dogs. It was probably around 11 at night. As we were about to pull into our complex, she said, "That car is following us." I asked which car she meant, and she said to look behind us. Sure enough, there was a black car following us down the road. She turned on her turn signal, and so did the black car. I asked her how long he'd been there, and she said he'd been following us since we'd left her mom's house. Not only was I freaked out, but I was thoroughly pissed. I yelled at her and demanded to know why she hadn't said something sooner, and she said she hadn't wanted to scare me. I asked her if he followed us through Wells Fargo, and she said he did. He pulled up behind us while she deposited money at the ATM, and pulled through after us without depositing anything or stopping. After calling her an idiot for not telling me until we were home, I told her to turn right after the gate at our complex instead of left, because our apartment was one of the first on the end. It was bad enough that he knew what complex we were in. He didn't need to see which apartment we were in. She turned right, and I told her to floor it. We drove through the complex as fast as we could and lost him near the back of the complex. We parked across the street from our apartment, turned off the car, and crouched down low to see if he would drive by again. We didn't see him, but we also didn't feel safe. We ran inside as quickly as we could to grab some blankets and pillows, the can of pepper spray we had, and I grabbed my knife. We got back in the car, and I called my ex-boyfriend in a panic asking him what else we could do. My roommate said she'd drive us to the movie theater she worked at, because it wouldn't close for a few hours and there would still be people in the parking lot. My ex kept asking me questions about the car that I couldn't answer, so I gave my roommate the phone. She described the car to the best of her ability, and then stopped mid-sentence when we got onto the highway. He was following us again. My ex asked if she was certain it was the same car, and she said it had to be. She never saw the license plate, but she recognized the body and the headlights, and the shape of the man who was driving it. She gave me back the phone and called her manager at work to tell him we were going to be coming by and what was going on. She managed to get a few cars ahead of the black car and got to the parking lot. She parked in the back before anyone else pulled in, but we didn't see the black car. One of her coworkers came outside and parked next to us to wait while my roommate called the cops. My ex promised we'd be okay and that he would have been there if he could, and that if anything else happened to call him so he could talk to his sergeant about leaving for the weekend to check on us. He's in the army and was on base a few hours away from us. The police said that since we didn't have the plate number there was nothing they could do, but when we told them where we lived, they said there was going to be a few officers there on patrol that night anyway. Since we couldn't tell whether or not he'd followed us into the parking lot, they told us to just go home. We ended up sleeping in the car in a Walmart parking lot and didn't come home until the next night. We never saw that black car again. Number 9. My ex scares me. Hi, my name is Arya. I just turned 20 in April. This happened in September of 2018. My ex, Christopher, scares the hell out of me. He's a narcissist and a very dangerous person. Well, little backstory. Christopher and I were friends since we were babies. We lived right next to each other. I don't remember who moved first, but one of us moved and we lost contact. It wasn't until late January, early February of 2018 that we reconnected. Well, we started dating in late February, early March. Everything was good for 2 months. Then I started thinking about breaking up with him. I didn't. My mom moved to where I currently live now. Christopher and I moved in with my father. I started cheating on him with my ex-fiancée because I was terrified to leave. He found out, broke up with me. We got back together the next morning. I'll save the details. I was still cheating on him. Come August, this psycho attempted suicide because I finally grew a pair and left him. We were still talking. Well, September comes around and Christopher ruins any chance I could have had with my ex-fiancée. That was the last straw. I blocked him on everything. He kept making new Facebook accounts and messaging me. Finally, I had enough and threatened a restraining order on him. He didn't let up. I filled a police report and got the temporary order the same day. He hadn't gotten served yet and was avoiding it, so they had to serve him on the phone. After he was served, he tried to break into my mother's house and tried to kill me. Luckily I wasn't home and he failed. March of this year comes around and I finally got the letter about the actual order. It's valid until November of 2021. Thank God I'll be married and hopefully out of the state by that time. Pray for me. He's still attempting. Number 10. Online stalker. This happened last year. In short, if you don't WSNT to read details, I had an app called Wattpad and made a few cringe-worthy stories, but nothing that ever described me, just a few fuck around things. Someone messaged me and it turned a little creepy. This started at like midnight, mid-school year, that someone texted me. They told me to go to sleep. Okay, creepy, but it could have been someone figuring I stay up late, cause that was kind of obvious by my upload schedule. I just told them that I would and left my phone to charge while watching YouTube before actually going to bed. The next day I was talking to my friend about it in lunch and someone aggressively bumped into my back. When I looked over, there was a big crowd of people going to line up, so I shrugged it off. Later that day I got another message. Creep stalker. How's your back? Me. It's fine. Creepy stalker. What were you talking to Maddie about? Me. That's none of your business. Who are you? Creepy stalker. I am Winky Face. Me. Alright, whatever. How did you know I was talking to Maxdy today? And why did you ask about my back? Winky Face. I saw you guys and I am the one that bumped you. Me. Okay, don't do it again and please leave me alone from now on. The next day I was talking to Maddie again, but about something random. Liquor giraffes were pretty weird, and I got another message during lunch. Winky Face. Giraffes. I left my phone alone. Winky Face. I know you checked the message. Want to explain? I turned my phone screen over and looked over to Maddie to make sure she wasn't doing it. She didn't even have her phone AMD. We were the only ones at our table. I heard a vibration from my phone and checked the message. Winky Face. Just to prove it isn't coincidence, I see you wearing a blue hoodie, black jeans and black sneakers. Me. Would you fuck off? I don't know who you are and I am uncomfortable with you messaging me. Okay. You're fucking creepy, alright. They didn't respond. Every day for the next month or so they would tell me what I wore that day. Litka snippets of my conversations and, more importantly, things I haven't told even my closest of friends. It was fucking creepy and I didn't appreciate it at all. They stopped after a while and deleted their account. Stalker guy or gal, if you're out there, go fuck yourself XP. Also, for those who say it could have been a friend, I only had or knew Maddie and even she didn't know half as much about me as this person decided to tell me about myself. And yeah, it might sound a little fake, but I promise you it is not. Make sure to hit that subscribe button for more scary stories.